The security camera footage was still playing on the TV. A young lady stood in front of the screen, shaking. The video showed her own birthday party from 2 years ago. Her mother was in the frame, laughing, hugging her. She turned to the woman sitting beside her and whispered, "That's my mother." The woman frowned. "I've never seen that woman in my life." She stared at her in disbelief. "You lived with her for 5 years." She slowly shook her head. "I swear on my life, I don't know her."
The rain had stopped hours ago, but the air still smelled of wet earth and smoke. Lagos was waking up, noisy and bright, but inside her small apartment, Abeni felt as if the world had paused. She sat on the edge of her bed, shaking, staring at her mother. "Mom?" she whispered. Her mother, sitting on the kitchen stool, looked at her blankly. Then she frowned. Do I know you?" Abeni froze. Her chest tightened. "Mom, it's me, Abeni." Her mother blinked slowly. "Abeni? I don't know anyone by that name." The words fell like stones. Her heart thudded so loud it felt like it would explode. No, this isn't happening," Abeni muttered. She stepped closer, reaching for her mother's hands. "It's me, your daughter. Don't you remember me? Her mother pulled back gently, as if she were holding a stranger. "I'm sorry, I really don't know you. Are you feeling okay?" Abeni's knees buckled. She collapsed onto the floor, her hands covering her face. Everything she had worked for, every late night, every sleepless week, every tear shed in private, was meaningless if the people she loved didn't even see her. A knock came at the door. Her neighbor peeked in, carrying a basket of laundry. "Morning, Abeni," she chirped. Abeni's voice caught in her throat. I'm Abeni. You know me, right?" The neighbor tilted her head, confused. "Abeni? I don't think we've met before." Silence. Absolute, suffocating silence. Tears ran down her cheeks. How could this happen? She had only wanted a better life, a career, a chance to rise above struggle, and she had gotten it. Her small business had exploded. Orders, social media fame, messages flooding her phone. Every step she took seemed golden. But now the cost was this. The people she loved, the people who should matter most, had no memory of her existence. Her mind raced. Was it a trick? A hallucination? Sleep deprivation? No, she had proof. Videos, photos, call logs. But even those seemed to mock her. Every message she opened felt hollow. Every voice on the phone sounded unfamiliar, as if it belonged to strangers speaking to strangers. She stumbled to the mirror. Her reflection stared back at her. The same face, the same eyes, but the woman looking back felt strange, distant, like a stranger trapped in her own body. Someone, she whispered to herself. What did I do? Abeni sank to the floor, tears flowing freely now. Outside, the city buzzed, but inside, her world had collapsed into a quiet, unbearable horror. A life she had dreamed of, success she had chased relentlessly. And now, she was completely, utterly invisible. And somewhere, in the shadows of her triumph, the first thread of a hidden price began to pull. Before the world forgot her, before the people she loved turned into strangers, Abeni had been living a life of quiet struggle. Every morning she woke before sunrise. The city was loud, impatient, unforgiving, but she loved it anyway. Her small tailoring shop, tucked between a busy mini market and a noisy corner bar, was the only thing keeping her afloat. Each customer meant survival, a pair of trousers, a blouse, a tiny commission, but never enough to feel free. Her hands were skilled, precise, capable of turning scraps of fabric into beauty, yet skill alone could not pay rent or clear debt. She worked 12, 14 hours a day, sewing, mending, smiling at customers who sometimes complained, sometimes ignored her. One evening, drenched in sweat and despair, Abeni walked home. She passed the flashing neon sign of a luxury boutique, Elite Threads, Staff Wanted. The words burned in her chest. She had seen that boutique before. Beautiful uniforms, bustling staff, wealthy clients, so close, yet always unreachable. But tonight she noticed something different. A handwritten note stuck to the glass door caught her eye. Immediate hiring. Talent required. Start tomorrow. Ask for Mr. Adedeo. Her heart skipped. Talent. That was her word. Her hands, her skill, her art. It had always been her secret pride. She couldn't ignore it. She pressed her face to the glass, imagining herself behind that counter, helping clients, finally earning her worth.
The next morning, nerves twisting her stomach into knots, she entered the boutique. The air smelled of perfume and polished wood. A man in a crisp suit looked up from his desk. "You must be the Abeni I called for," he said calmly. "Come this way." He led her through the boutique, racks of fabrics, mirrors reflecting light like a river of gold. "We've seen your work," he continued. "The patterns, the finishing, the patience, it's rare. We want you." Abeni's mouth went dry. I can start immediately," she stammered. "Yes, and," he added, with a faint, almost imperceptible smile, "you will find that once you begin, life will open doors for you you never imagined." She hesitated. Something about the calm in his voice, the certainty in his eyes. It felt unreal, like a promise whispered in shadows. But her life had been nothing if not unreal. She had nothing to lose. The first day was unlike anything she had ever experienced. Orders came in like waves. Customers smiled, complimented her, even tipped her for small repairs she had done. Her hands moved faster than usual, her fingers precise, the seams perfect, as if guided by something beyond her. By the end of the week, she had earned more than she ever made in a month at her small shop. Her phone rang constantly, clients asking for more work, people sharing her designs on social media, strangers praising her skill. Abeni smiled, a thrill of disbelief rushing through her veins. Finally, she was being seen. Finally, she was valued. Finally, she was successful. But that night, as she lay awake in her tiny room, she remembered the question her mother had asked that morning. "Do I know you?" She shivered. Something felt off. The success, the recognition, the sudden rise, it all felt too easy, too fast. But she shook the thought away. She had earned this. She deserved this. Or so she thought. Outside her window, the city lights gleamed like stars fallen to the earth. Somewhere, beyond the glare, something waited quietly, watching, patient, waiting for the next thread to pull. Success was intoxicating. Abeni's designs were selling faster than she could sew. Orders came in from across the city, from towns she had never visited. Social media buzzed with her name, the seamstress who works magic. Every notification on her phone felt like a victory, a confirmation that she had finally arrived. Yet, amid the joy, a small crack had appeared, one that would grow into a canyon. It began with her younger brother, Kemi. The boy had always been her shadow, following her into the small alleyways of their neighborhood, watching her sew, carrying scraps of fabric like treasures. He was her anchor, the only piece of home she had carried into the city. That evening, she returned home with 2 large shopping bags, her heart light with pride. Kemi ran to greet her, but the moment he saw her, his eyes widened, not with excitement, but with confusion. "Auntie?" he asked hesitantly. Abeni stopped in her tracks. "Kemi, it's me, your sister. Don't you remember?" The boy shook his head. I think you're someone else. I don't know you." Her hands trembled. "Don't know me? Kemi, we live together. We eat together. I help you with school." He frowned, stepping back. I don't remember any of that. I'm sorry." The words hit her like a physical blow. Her chest tightened, her vision blurred. She stumbled to the nearest chair and sank into it. No, no, this isn't happening," she whispered, her voice breaking. For hours she tried to convince him, to remind him, to show pictures, videos, school books, anything, but it was as if her existence had been erased from his mind. Each proof she presented was met with polite confusion. Her brother, the boy who had once idolized her, now saw her as a stranger. That night, Abeni sat alone in her apartment, the city lights outside flashing and buzzing, indifferent to her horror. She clutched her phone, scrolling through photos and messages. Everyone she had shared her life with, friends, neighbors, clients, everyone was reachable, but none of them remembered her in the smallest personal detail from her past. It wasn't just her mother. It wasn't just Kemi. It was as if the world had quietly pressed erase on her existence. A cold sweat covered her skin. She remembered the man from the boutique, his calm voice, the promise whispered in shadows. Once you begin, life will open doors for you never imagined. Abeni's hands shook.
What did I agree to? Outside, the city hummed, oblivious. Somewhere beyond the hum, something watched silently, waiting, patient, ready to test her. And deep inside, Abeni realized this was only the beginning. The first warning had come. By the following week, Abeni's world began to crumble in ways she couldn't ignore. It wasn't just Kemi or her mother anymore. Friends, neighbors, even her closest colleagues at the boutique, one by one they started slipping from her life, not physically, but from their memories. Her best friend, Ifeoma, had called her on the phone, excited to share news about her own designs, but when Abeni mentioned their shared college days, Ifeoma paused. "College? I'm sorry, Abeni, I don't remember that," she said softly. "Are you sure we were friends?" Abeni's hands shook. "Of course. You and I studied together for 4 years." There was a long silence on the line. Then finally, I think you've got the wrong person. I'm really sorry." Her heart felt as if it had been ripped from her chest. By evening, she walked through her usual streets, past the market and the small alleyways she knew so well, calling out names of familiar faces. Nobody recognized her. Shopkeepers looked at her blankly. Children she had once played with ignored her, passing by as if she were a ghost. Panic clawed at her throat. The city that had once celebrated her name now felt cold, alien. She remembered the man at the boutique, the calm, almost eerie smile. Had she signed a contract she didn't fully understand? Desperation made her act. She returned to her apartment and scoured every contact in her phone. Friends, family, old clients, everyone had deleted her from memory, as if she had never existed. Even social media posts she had made herself were missing. Her account was there, but the interactions, the messages, the praise, all gone. Abeni collapsed on the floor, shaking. "What is happening to me?" she whispered, tears falling freely. The next day, she returned to the boutique, hoping someone, anyone, would remember her. But the receptionist looked at her like she was a stranger. "Can I help you?" I work here," Abeni said, voice quivering. "I'm Abeni. I've been hired here." The receptionist tilted her head, frowning. "Abeni? I don't know anyone by that name." It was the same everywhere. Her dream job, her hard-earned success, was now meaningless without anyone to see her existence. At night, she sat alone, clutching old photographs, trying desperately to anchor herself to reality. She saw her own eyes staring back at her from the pictures, but even those felt distant, like someone else's life captured on film. And that's when she heard it, the faintest whisper of a voice in the shadows. Not human, not city noise, just a soft, eerie hum, like a cold wind curling around her heart. Abeni shivered. She didn't know what it was, but somewhere deep inside she felt the first thread of understanding. Her rise had a cost, and now the price was coming due. She had been warned, but she hadn't listened, and the spiral had begun. Abeni couldn't take it anymore. Every familiar face had become a stranger. Every place she once belonged felt alien. She felt invisible, erased. She needed answers. The whispers returned that night, faint and melodic, curling around her like smoke. They seemed to lead her, tugging her toward an abandoned part of the city, a quiet alley she had never noticed before. At the end of it was a small, unmarked door, glowing faintly in the darkness. Something inside her compelled her forward. Trembling, she pushed the door open. The room was small, almost empty, except for a single wooden table.
On it lay a piece of black fabric, folded perfectly, and a small hand-carved wooden figure. The air shimmered, almost alive. A voice came from nowhere and everywhere at once. You sought success. You took the shortcut. You wanted fame without cost. Abeni's breath caught. Who are you? The voice softened. I am the one who guided your hands, who made your talent faster, sharper, irresistible. I gave your dreams wings, and now you forget that everything has a price. Her mind flashed back to the boutique owner's calm smile, the strange speed in her hands, the way everything had seemed almost magical. She realized with terror that her rise had never been entirely hers. You made me invisible? She whispered. Yes, the voice said. The world sees only what you are willing to pay for. Your hands became wondrous, your skill unmatched, but your existence became conditional. Fame without roots requires sacrifice. Abeni's knees buckled. I didn't know. I just wanted a better life. The voice, gentle yet firm, echoed around her. Desperation is a door. You opened it. You received what others toil for a lifetime to earn. But every gift has a tether. Your loved ones, their memories, they were part of that tether. You chose speed over patience, shortcut over effort, and now the cost comes due. She sank to the floor, tears flowing. Please, I'll do anything. Give it back. Silence answered her. Then the voice spoke again. You will live, you will work, you will rebuild, but the shortcuts are gone. You must earn again, step by step, without help. Only then will you find your life, not the life you wanted, but the life you deserve. The wooden figure glimmered faintly, then crumbled into dust. The black fabric burned to ash. Abeni sat in silence, trembling, understanding at last. The magic that had carried her so far had a cost she couldn't ignore, a cost she couldn't undo. Outside, the city continued its relentless rhythm, oblivious. But Abeni knew one truth now. She could no longer rely on miracles. She had to rebuild, and she had to do it herself, with patience, effort, and humility. The first step would be the hardest, but it was hers to take. Abeni returned to the alleyway where the wooden figure had crumbled and the black fabric had burned. The city around her moved with its usual relentless rhythm, cars honking, merchants shouting, the chatter of voices, but she felt detached, removed, as though she were watching life through a fogged window.
She had lost everything. Her fame, her clients, her friends, the very people who had once celebrated her skill. But perhaps most painfully, she had lost herself. She remembered the thrill of her first orders, the way her hands had danced across fabrics, the whispers of admiration. That magic, the shortcut, was gone, and with it, the illusion of a life built without effort. For a long time, she simply sat. Her fingers traced the cracks in the concrete floor. Her heart felt heavy, not just with loss, but with understanding. She had been impatient, proud, and willing to step over invisible boundaries for instant success. And now, the world had reminded her that every gift, every blessing, carries a tether, and shortcuts are never free. Days passed before she moved again. When she finally stood, it was with a quiet determination, a different kind of courage, the kind that comes from having nowhere else to turn except forward. She returned to the modest street where she had once sewn late into the nights, where she had first learned to measure, cut, and stitch with care. It was small, barely noticed, but it was hers. Her neighbors looked at her strangely. The stories of her sudden rise and disappearance had circulated, and some whispered, "She is forgotten," or maybe she vanished. Abeni ignored them. She knew the whispers were harmless compared to the truth she carried. The first day back at her old workshop was hard. Her hands remembered the movements, but the speed, the perfection, the effortless rhythm, the shortcuts were gone. Customers trickled in, skeptical, hesitant. They had heard tales of her magical speed, but now they were met with ordinary skill, human effort. Some left disappointed, some laughed nervously, but Abeni persisted. She remembered something her mother had told her years ago. Talent without patience is like a tree without roots. It can grow fast, but it will fall the first storm. She breathed deeply. Every cut, every stitch, every fold became deliberate. She focused on the process, the discipline, the patience. She measured twice, cut once. She pressed each seam carefully, and gradually, her work regained its beauty. Not the magical, supernatural speed that had been borrowed, but a beauty rooted in effort,
discipline, and dedication. Weeks turned into months. Slowly, her name returned, not in whispers of instant fame, but in quiet respect. People saw the dedication in her eyes. They noticed the care in their hands. They admired the humility she carried alongside her talent. Those who came for her services left feeling something rare. They had touched work that was real, genuine, earned, and human. Abeni also began teaching, taking in apprentices from the neighborhood. She told them stories, not of shortcuts, but of perseverance. She spoke of the cost of impatience and pride, and in their faces, eager, hopeful, she saw a reflection of the younger self she had almost lost. She realized that in teaching, she was rebuilding not only her craft, but her soul. One evening, as the sun dipped below the city skyline, casting amber shadows across her workshop, Abeni stepped outside. She looked up at the stars beginning to pierce the night, silent and infinite. She whispered a quiet prayer. "Thank you for the lessons. Thank you for letting me rise the right way this time." She remembered the whispers in the alley, the wooden figure, the burned fabric, the lost memories of loved ones, and she smiled, not with pride, but with wisdom. She had learned what no shortcut could teach. True success is earned. True skill is patient. True legacy is built, not borrowed. A breeze moved across her face, carrying with it a hint of the city and a whisper of the world beyond. She felt alive, not because of fame or speed, but because of effort, honesty, and resilience. She understood now that the real magic had never been in the shortcuts. It had always been in her hands, shaped by perseverance, humility, and heart. Her heart, once weighed down by loss and regret, now beat with calm resolve. She had rebuilt her life, stitch by stitch, day by day, learning to cherish the slow victories, the real triumphs, and the enduring lessons. Abeni's story became not for speed or magic, but for resilience, dedication, and rebirth. She was a symbol, not of instant fame, but of effort, patience, and the courage to return to the beginning when everything had been stripped away.
And in that quiet triumph, she finally understood. Success without roots is fragile, but effort with humility endures forever. Moral lesson: never abandon the source of your blessings. Shortcuts may promise speed and recognition, but they rarely provide depth, sustainability, or honor. True success is earned through patience, effort, and integrity. What rises too quickly, without roots, falls even faster. Respect your beginnings, honor your gifts, and let persistence be your guide. If Abeni's story touched you, if it reminded you of the power of patience, resilience, and humility, like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Tales by Omo, where story here carries meaning, lessons, and truths that stay with you. Comment below, where are you watching from, and what lesson touched you most? We read every messages, and your voice matters. See you all in our next chapter. Bye, guys.